Here at Pan M360, we have the pleasure to interview Mr. Joseph Tawadros, who's a virtuoso of oud or oud in the Arabic pronunciation, and also a contemporary composer. So you're from Egypt, and are you living in UK?
No, actually, I'm living in the UK, but I'm Australian. Actually, I was brought up in Australia.
You're Australian
Yeah.
with Egyptian origins.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Egypt, and my family immigrated to Australia, and then I moved to London 8 years ago.
And your name means that you are Christian Copt, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah, Coptic background. Yeah.
Yeah, there are many Copti in Montreal. You know that?
Yeah. Well, there you go. We tend to spread out.
Yeah, we have known people called Tadros in Montreal.
Yeah, well, Tadros is the original family name, actually. So Tawadros is a spin on that. Yeah.
This is what I thought. I thought that Tawadros and Tadros were the same origins. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're a performer, Joseph. You are also a composer. You play along with small ensembles, and you did your first experience with the Montreal Symphony Orchestra, and you're going to play with the Obiora ensemble on Friday. This is those are occasions those are possibilities and opportunities from you to present your art form, present the oud that we know, because we know there are now many great virtuosos around the world, and also because we have an Arabic festival since 25 years here. So we discovered great musicians like Nasir Shama, for example. So it's the Iraqi guy based in Cairo right now, you know, probably. Yeah. So there are like many now soloists like you who are, you know, expanding the world of oud and compositions around this great instrument.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's great to be a part of the scene, but you know, I've always had an interest, especially growing up in Australia, had an interest with Western music. I'm very engrossed in my Egyptian culture, and my family brought me up on music and movies, and so it was always in the house, and hence why I have my connection with the instrument. But I've also been exposed to other music because living in Australia, you know, you get the chance to have such a great multicultural landscape that allows you to collaborate with all sorts of different artists and just to be exposed to it. And so that's where my music comes from. But also, I think not being raised in the Middle East also has its advantages with, as I said, the open ears, the musicians from different cultures, and also just finding your way between the two. When you're engrossed in a certain instrument, in a certain culture, you may be closed off to other collaborations or not do them as well as somebody that's being more versed in the in the scene. So I was able to study classical music at the University of New South Wales, and so I've had an upbringing that, even though I played the oud, they accepted me on the oud, and that's how I started my journey. And so that's why I've been able to be exposed to great conductors and great orchestras. And yesterday, I mean, Rafael is amazing. I mean, we hit it off when we met, and it was such a great and special experience to watch him conducting the other stuff first before getting on stage. I was very moved, and actually, just before the first piece I played, I said to him that, you know, it's such an honor to be sharing the stage after what I just witnessed. I was very moved by his performance and his passion, and I think when you get people like that together, then magic happens on stage, and then that's transferred to the audience.
If we talk about the oud player that you are, where were your primary influences when you started? Did you start with the Iraqi school, or the Lebanese school, or Egyptian school, or North African excellent oud players too?
I'm very Egypt centric because, you know, I was brought up on the old movies, and even if you were from Lebanon or Palestine or Iraq or Syria, when you came to find fame, you came to Cairo. Cairo was the Hollywood of the Middle East. So I was exposed to the great oud players like Riyad al-Sumbati, Muhammad Abdul Wahab. You have Farid al-Atrash, Muhammad al-Asabgi. Farid al-Atrash was, of course, from Druze. He was a Druze, Syrian. So there's all these influences, but I'm very highly influenced by the traditional oud playing of Egypt. And of course, then later when I developed more and more, I looked to the other schools like Munir Bashir, the Iraqi school, and the Turkish school, and the Armenians as well. So there's a rich history, and even the Greek oud players. There's some great Yorgo Bazanos. So there's a lot of wealth of traditional oud players in the Middle East and in Europe as well, in some parts of Europe. So with the development of the internet, I was looking to, just try and find a vocabulary. The more you practice, it's about really finding vocabulary, finding phrases, and then making them your own. And then, I find myself like a sponge. The more you listen to, the more you engross yourself with certain types of music that then becomes a part of you. And that's what I try and do. The thing is that also I've tried to push away from is one, I want to make it fun. I think oud players tend to be a little bit serious. So I think in nature of how I dress, I always wear a tarbouche on stage, and I wear pinks and purples and very bright colors. And so I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to be that kind of individual and for the audience to have fun. Because the oud can lend itself to melancholy, of course, as we know, but it's also a very happy, region, and a very joyous region, and one that is a real celebration. And when we celebrate music, we celebrate live food and people, and I think the music should reflect that.
Yeah, and the language of oud has changed a lot since 30, 40 years, 50 years, since Munir Bashir, for example.
Yes.
It changed so much, and now we see an expansion of the technique itself. Expanded techniques of oud. For example, Shama in Cairo, even if he's from Baghdad originally, but he lives in Egypt, he changed some parts of the technique, and other guys had a different contribution. Where would be yours right now? How do you see it?
Look, I like that everyone brings a little bit to the story. And I mean, the oud is built upon the great ancestors of oud playing. And not only that, the great poets and the great artists. The music holds such a wealth of other artistic elements rather than just music. There's strength in words and poetry, and it's a very rich culture. But I think my collaborative stuff is I think what I kind of shine away from. The other stuff is kind of soul within technique. I love playing super fast. I like having fun, but it's also, I'm not afraid to be collaborating with anyone. I've done heavy metal and punk bands and all sorts of things that are not you're not used to having on the oud, but I'm not afraid to attack any of those things. And also, again, just being very individual and, leaning more to more jazz collaborations, of course, because I have knowledge of jazz and knowledge of classical, and trying to do collaborations in a non-corny way, but also not just to write music for the region or to represent the region, because also I'm Australian. So we can't deny that I'm very much Australian. You can hear it in my voice, and I'm very much Egyptian. And so it's about finding a medium where people enjoy it on a grand level, where they resonate on an emotional level. I'm not too concerned with writing a piece representing a region. Rather, I'm more concerned with writing a piece about someone's emotions. And a lot of the music, like a piece like last night, Permission to Evaporate, that was written about me, my parents passing away. And so we all share loss, and that's why it has that kind of melancholy, but also has hope, and hopefully it provides as some sort of healing for somebody that's going through the same thing. But as people heard yesterday, it was a very fun and seamless collaboration with the orchestra. And I think it also comes down to Rafael leading such a great group of musicians, and they really we were really shining yesterday.
Yes, as you said, you're a sort of citizen of the world. Your Arabic origins and cultural origins are blended with other kinds of influences. You said jazz, also classical music, European classical music tradition. How do you build an orchestral piece with an Occidental symphony orchestra, which is quite different from Arabic symphony orchestra that plays very differently with different sections? In an Arabic symphony orchestra, you have whole sections of oud players, for example. And when it comes to Occidental symphony orchestra, it becomes a solo instrument sometimes, rarely right now.
Well, it's again, it comes down to the knowledge of being exposed to orchestras at a young age and being performing with chamber groups. I've had a great relationship with the Australian Chamber Orchestra for more than 20 years, and we're touring America in October. So and we played Vivaldi on the oud, for instance. So we do the 4 seasons. So there's another thing where you can find similarities with the music. I mean, the music can be very far from each other. Middle Eastern music, there are difficult things orally for someone to listen to and go, well, that's really far from the culture. However, there's a lot of things that also are very similar. And Egypt, again, with the movie industry and all of that, we're a very cosmopolitan society, Cairo, and they had influences. Muhammad Abdul Wahab, one of the great Egyptian composers, he was quoting symphonies and finding similarities between pieces. Farid Al-Atrash, who I mentioned before, one of the great oud players, he did Asturias on the oud with an orchestra, with a Western orchestra. So there have been those developments. But a few years ago, I wrote a oud concerto, and that was a commentary on really that East meets West, or having a very Arabic oud amongst Western harmonies and counterpoint and polyphony, and so as things within Western music that aren't so developed sometimes in the Middle East, because Middle Eastern orchestras, they're monophonic, they play in one line, so only the melody. The melody is strength. So and with my pieces, melody is strength, but we put big harmonies behind them, and we kind of make them very heavy and thick and very rich in sound. So again, it just comes down to being exposed and working with great musicians and people that have your similar vision and are able to help you create that.
Yeah. So don't you think it's a great challenge to include Arabic, classical Arabic traditions in music to another which includes polyphony and counterpoint that is not really existing in symphonic music in the Arabic world?
Well, I mean, there are things happening now with that, but it's also very hard because Arabic music has quarter tones, and so quarter tones are very hard to harmonize. And so, it's a different kind of culture and richness in another way. So, hence those experiments. So when you do work with a Western orchestra, you have to move away from that as well, because you don't want it to be a mishmash. Basically, it's about challenging Western musicians, but giving them something that they know. So it's something that they know, they've heard before, they know that they can execute, and they know that they can shine within it. But otherwise, if you gave them quarter tones and things that they're not being brought up with, it's not going to be a very strong collaboration. It's just going to be a textural mishmash, which we try and avoid at all times, I think.
I understand. Yeah. This is what you did with Andrew Wan yesterday when in the Constantinople piece. When at the first bars of the piece, he had a great performance to do with you at the same time. So it was a sort of à l'unisson, as we say in French. And so you did the same line of what he did, and finally it was a great opportunity for him to dive into more Arabic lines.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you could hear, he's capable. You see what I mean? So again, you give them things that they know that they can do, but it's a little bit of a challenge. And yesterday he nailed it. He was spot on, and I think the audience were really taken by that moment. It was just a nice little opening moment in Constantinople, and then it sets that sets the mood for the rest of the piece. But yeah, it was a lot of excitement on stage, and again, I have to thank Rafael Payare, because he's amazing. He has so much passion, and it's just great to see a conductor with that much passion and that much quality actually behind him. And we've hit it off straight away. And he made the orchestra sound so beautiful, and he just understood it. And that's what I mean, that you can give somebody a score like that, and he knows exactly what's happening and what it should sound like.
Yes, it's a great open-mindedness, of course. But now we can just have some hints about what's going to happen on Saturday, end of PM.
Well, it's a smaller ensemble, the Obiora ensemble. They're beautiful players and beautiful people, really. And again, I love to collaborate with people that are just lovely, And I think that's the thing. When you have that spirit and you have that energy, it really translates not only to the players. I want the players to be happy. So when they play my things, one, I want them to be involved. I want them to be included, and I want them to have fun while they're performing. There's nothing worse than people thinking this music is a chore. So It's great that it's not happening. They're really enjoying it, and it's a smaller ensemble from the symphony orchestra, and there'll be no conductor, and they'll just play themselves. But I'm doing 3 of my pieces again, totally different to last night, and yeah, they'll have, I think, an energy and a buzz, and I think the audience will enjoy the collaboration as well. But that's more as a chamber, string ensemble.
Yeah, but if you work with a small ensemble, which happens much more for out player playing with small ensemble or solo or backing a great singer, for example. This time it's a small classical ensemble. How did you design your pieces for that?
Again, this came back to the Australian Chamber Orchestra when I toured with them about 10 years ago. We did a program of my music and also the Four Seasons with Vivaldi. So we interspersed my pieces in between. So myself and the great Richard Tognetti, great violinist in Australia, we worked on these arrangements together, and they're very exciting. They're very exciting. They're very tricky. And as I said, they're very inclusive of the orchestra. It's very important to write music that includes people, and not only does it include the musicians on stage, it includes the audience. The audience feel a part of it, and when they see musicians having fun and smiling and really working their craft, they really enjoy it. And I think that's why people like lively music, and one where they can feel the energy but also resonate with the sentiment of the music.
Yes, so we're looking forward for this next performance on Saturday, 4:30 p.m.
That's correct.
Maison Symphonique with Obiora Ensemble. So, Joseph Tawadros, we were very pleased to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And it was very cool to have those explanations of this hybridization of Oriental music and Occidental, if not Australian music.
Yeah, fair enough. Contemporary Australian Egyptian music, I guess. There we go.
Australian Egyptian contemporary music. Excellent. Great label.
Thank you so much, Alain.
Have a good stay in Montreal.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Ciao.